Okay, this is to help you out with the concepts that you did not understand from reading one. First of all, this is our introductory lesson about what is anthropology. And I'm just going to read for you and re-explain some of the concepts that you might have gotten wrong in the formative. One of the most enjoyable, necessary, and often difficult puzzles in life is understanding yourself and other people. This includes people from other countries who live differently than you do. The sciences that study how people perceive, think, and act are known as behavioral sciences. By studying one of these, psychology, you can better understand yourself and others as unique and individual human beings. By studying another, sociology, you can improve your understanding of how and why you and other people act certain ways in groups. In this unit, you will take a close look at a third behavioral science called anthropology. That was one of the formative questions. The formative questions was, anthropology is not a behavioral science, true or false, and you should have put down false because it is a behavioral science. Okay, going on. The word anthropology comes from the two Greek words, anthropos meaning humankind and logos meaning the study of. A person who studies anthropology is called an anthropologist. Anthropologists study cultures, the ways people live in groups, their languages, their values, and their technologies. So just think of an anthropologist as somebody that studies culture. Anthropology is the study of culture, which includes, again, the way people live in groups, their languages, their values, and their technologies. All right. Anthropologists study the ways in which human groups change over the years. The work of anthropologists is similar to that of sociologists. Sociologists, however, usually study the relationships among people in groups today in this country. Anthropologists study the ways human beings perceive, think, and behave in many different parts of the world and at many different times throughout history. Beginning with the earliest humans who lived perhaps 1 million years ago, every part of the world where people have lived is of interest to anthropologists. There are two branches of anthropology. That means there's two ways we divide up the big study of culture. Physical anthropologists study of heredity and the biological evolution of human beings. So that's really just talking about how people came to be, okay, how we evolved or, spread throughout the earth. Cultural anthropology is a study of how people in different societies live and the effects of their environments have on their lifestyles. So we look at igloos for Inuits/Eskimos, or we look at how Hmong people live in the mountains. This unit will focus mainly on cultural anthropology. You may notice that some of the things we discussed in doing studying anthropology are based on concepts and processes of the other behavioral sciences. In fact, we'll be using some of the same tools that psychologists and sociologists use, including observation and analysis of human behavior. We'll be using many of the critical thinking skills described in Unit 1. Anthropologists need to understand how cultures develop stereotypes and cliches. They must identify the assumptions upon which people base their culture. We must also be able to create good questions to learn and understand the ways of life that different cultures follow. Anthropologists find out about cultures in several ways. One way is by living with the people in the cultures they are studying. In this way, anthropologists come into contact with the people's way of life every day, including their food, music, and work habits. Anthropologists try to live the same kind of existence as the people so they can better understand why those people do what they do. Anthropologists call this living in the field or a field experience. Anthropologists have discovered that it is easier to understand other people when you put yourself in their shoes. So you live as they do, you go when you live in their culture, that's field experience. Another way anthropologists have of studying cultures is by reading the accounts of other anthropologists' findings. These accounts often give anthropologists a place to begin their own original research. Unfortunately, not all cultures are still in existence today. Some cultures that were alive and prospering thousands of years ago have left things behind, often buried in the ground. Think of Pompeii here. Remember all the people that were buried and all their things in the pots and their bodies, all that kind of stuff. Those would definitely be something we're about to talk about next. Anthropologists use these ancient human-made things called artifacts to put together a description of how people and culture once lived. So think of arrowheads, think of pots, all those things are artifacts. Anything that's human-made that's very old, artifact. They also study skeletons of human beings and animals to figure out how everyday life was carried on. In order to find artifacts, excavation, digging things out of the ground, is often necessary. So when scientists or anthropologists, they look for things in the ground, that is called excavation. I've talked many times about the terracotta warriors in China and how they found all those ancient warriors from 2,200 years ago. That is a big excavation project. Okay. Then up-to-date tools and technologies such as computers are used to date objects, telling how old they are. Anthropologists who use this method of research are called archaeologists. Their special field of study is called archaeology. So those that are doing these digs or excavation and they're looking for artifacts are called archaeologists. Why should we study anthropology? There are many good reasons. Perhaps the best is this. We all live in a very small part of a very big world. There are many ways of living. Our way is just one of thousands. The earth changes, the environment changes, and humanity itself changes. By studying these different cultures in anthropology, we discover that our ways of doing things are not the only ways. If we don't know the reasons behind the perceptions, thoughts, and actions of other cultures, we may think of them as weird or funny or not as good as our own. We may even find some of them offensive. By investigating other cultures and putting ourselves into them, we can begin to appreciate their beauty and richness. Okay, let's go over these questions real quick. What is anthropology? Your big answer should basically be the study of culture or study of technologies, the study of their languages and how people live in certain places. How do anthropologists use critical thinking skills in their work? They're going to look at all the things that are around them. They try to piece it together since it's not always very obvious. Name 3 types of anthropologists and describe their work. One was archaeologists, and then the other was physical anthropologists. They're going to study how people came to be, and cultural anthropologists. So they study how people in different societies live and affects their environment have on their lifestyles. Okay, let's look at the questions. There are 2 branches of anthropology. You should know this is false. The 2 branches are physical and cultural. The rest of these are, for the most part, not branches. Linguistic and physical is not a branch. Cultural and linguistic is not. Culture is a branch, but linguistic is not. Archaeology is not a branch, but physical is. So just physical and cultural. Archaeologists are those that dig up the past and study artifacts. It's not what has 2 branches. Anthropology does. Study of the mind is psychology. Study of people and groups, that's sociology. Artifacts are fossils. No, fossils are ancient or once dead, now dead animals that have been buried in the ground. Artifacts, however, are ancient or really old human-made things. Observation and analysis is not the right answer. That's just the tools that anthropologists have. Excavation just means to dig for things, but they would probably dig for artifacts. Again, ancient human-made things. Anthropology is not the study of people in groups, that's sociology. Not the study of the mind and behavior, that's sociology. It is the study of cultures, ways people live in groups, languages, values, and technologies. Archaeology is a part of anthropology, but it's not anthropology itself. That's it for today. You should be ready to take the formative assessment.